This is South Africa, a land of really stunning beauty, rich in agricultural heritage, a land with so much potential. Now, for context, in this piece, I'm in the Eastern Cape, a province that has the largest share of livestock in South Africa. In fact, it's 38% of all goats in the country, 30% of all sheep, and 25% of the country's cattle stock. Now, on top of that, the Eastern Cape has 16% of the country's milk producers, and it contributes 26% of the milk produced in the country. So, with all that said, livestock is all around here, and it plays a very large part of the livelihoods of the people who live in these parts and around the country. This is a very beautiful province because it even produces 15 million kilograms of wool every single year. It's important. So let's put this into perspective for the entire country. Now, from a revenue perspective, according to StatsSA, the total income earned from the agricultural and related services industries was 417 billion rand in 2021 compared with 372 billion in 2020. Now, around that same year of 2021, animals and animal products in South Africa generated the largest agricultural sales at 159 billion rand, around $8.8 billion. This was followed by horticultural crops and products at 110 billion rand and field crops at 81 billion rand. Now, why am I giving you all of these numbers? Well, they're very important for us to understand an important part of agriculture. Beneath the surface of places like this in the Eastern Cape lies a persistent and devastating problem: stock theft. Now, this crime is often overlooked by many because we're not in the value chain. But it has a far-reaching consequence for us and also for the country's economy and the livelihoods of the people who are involved in it, and especially the people in provinces like the Eastern Cape. But this problem, even though it is pronounced in the Eastern Cape, it's a countrywide problem that has far-reaching socio-economic effects. So in this video, we're going to explore the livestock market and the criminal complexities that actually go with it. The first place I think we should start is the stats around livestock theft. Now, these were provided by the South African police, and they're from February of 2024. Now, a simple glance might suggest a modest decrease of 2.1% or 156 less criminal livestock theft cases. But overall, there's still a huge problem. Now, the reality is that there are more than 15,000 plus cases of stock theft every single year in South Africa. And in some years, that number is actually even higher. Now, while a decrease of 2.1% in stock theft cases might seem encouraging, it's actually important to contextualize this within the broader scope of livestock management and its agricultural practices. Livestock theft remains a persistent problem in this country, and it's not just a simple crime as many people might think. The results of stock theft extend far beyond just mere numbers. It actually encompasses the livelihoods, food security, and also it touches on the social fabric of rural societies just like this one. The other thing is that the official figures on this crime are actually really hard to pin down, as only a fraction of the actual instances of livestock thefts are actually reported. Thus, the data is skewed and it skews the perception of the severity of this problem. There are also other issues that affect stock theft crime, like the general distrust in law enforcement, the fear of reprisals from criminal networks for those who tell on them, and also, to be clear, some communities live in fear from these stock theft gangs. Then you've got to add the bureaucratic hurdles in reporting procedures, and also this is a well-known phenomenon. Now, while there is a general downward trend in the overall number of livestock theft cases in South Africa, a closer look actually exposes a worrying reality. There is a substantial spike in cow theft, particularly this year and in previous quarters of last year. Cattle theft in late 2023 actually increased by 11% between October and December. It went from 14,500 to 16,000 head of cattle that were stolen. That's just in 3 months. Now, this frightening jump not only indicates that there's a major increase in incidents of cattle theft in South Africa, but it also shows the negative results of significant financial losses to cattle farmers. Now, without knowing if those said stolen cattle are actually all bulls, which generally fetch for more, or pregnant cows, or just even a normal cow or a calf, with a reasonable average of around 12,000 rand per head of cattle, that would mean in just the last year's third quarter alone, stolen cattle accounted for 174 to 193 million rand, around $10 million. That's absolutely crazy in just 3 months. Now, if you spread this out over a year using the same average, you get close to 700 to 800 million rand in just stolen cows alone. This problem is real and it's massive. So where is all of this cattle stock theft happening? Now, the provinces with the most cattle thefts in order from last year's third quarter, it's KZN, which is first with 4,000 cattle stolen. Then you've got the Eastern Cape with 2,950 cattle stolen. Then it's the Free State with 2,100 cattle stolen. Now, when looking at stolen sheep, in 2022-2023, 35,000 sheep were stolen just in the Eastern Cape province. And with the average sheep going for around 2,500 Rand to 3,000 Rand, that's literally around 100 million Rand worth of stolen sheep just in the Eastern Cape. Now, another province with heavy sheep theft numbers turns out to be the Free State, which had around 20,000 plus sheep stolen in 2022-2023. Then you've got the Northwest. Now, this really surprised me. They came in third with around 5,000 sheep stolen within that same year. Actually, let us know in the comments, how much does a live sheep or a cow or even a goat cost in your area or province? Also, maybe let us know how bad is stock theft in your area. Also, something that I considered when looking at this data set was that since this is the end of the year, when we're looking at this spike around October and December, or October to December, there's a lot of people who are going home in South Africa. It's our festive season, and thus there's a higher demand for livestock, for traditional ceremonies and even celebrations. So maybe a lot of people are actually buying stolen meat. So what is causing the stock theft surge, and what is being done about it? What's rather disheartening about stock theft is that it affects commercial and subsistence farmers alike, and the law doesn't seem to have a grasp or doesn't seem to be harsh enough to deter this type of crime. The Stock Theft Act 57 of 1959 actually governs and defines livestock theft and related offences in South Africa. The Act defines stock theft in itself as being animals such as cattle, sheep, goats, horses, and pigs, etc. The offences related to stock theft include the stealing of stock theft, the concealment of stolen animals, branding and marking animals without permission, and also the selling or the possession of stolen livestock. Now, sentences for stock theft in South Africa can sometimes include imprisonment and fines. The severity of a lot of these sentences depends on the circumstances of each crime, such as the number of animals that were stolen and whether the offender is a first-time offender or not. And also the planning of the crime. Who was the mastermind? That's actually quite important, because who's actually buying a lot of the stolen meat? For instance, in one case, the Cathcart Regional Court sentenced a Lesotho national, Teboho Letsi, who was 56 at the time, to 10 years direct imprisonment after he was convicted of stock theft. He happened to be an undocumented immigrant, and he was a resident of the district when he committed the crime. And he stole 159 merino purebred sheep from a farm in the district. Now, it must be clear that these stock thieves aren't now just only petty criminals. They're very much more organized than ever. Like, for instance, at my grandmother's place, they stole 13 sheep in just one night, Kutsolo. These people came with a trailer. There were men who were armed with guns. Now, in another case that happened just 2 weeks ago, Apa Elalin, this is just outside Mthatha, and a close family lost 3 sheep, and one of those being a male ram, which is a prized possession. Now, in that case, which I may or may not intimately know about, the guys were found, and the community may or may not have taught those same people a lesson that they might not forget. Now, the thing is that people are actually fed up with how the law is so slow moving when it comes to cases just like this. And also, a lot of people feel that the punishments are just too lenient. These are just some of the cases, and a lot of these are actually close to home if you're in one of these core livestock rearing provinces. Now, in my opinion, there is a clear need to regulate and also to police local butcheries who aren't actually above board a lot of the time when it comes to sourcing their meat through reputable channels. For instance, Apa Mthatha, there are accounts of butcheries that operate in the dead of the night who are actually slaughtering and slicing up meat for sale for the next morning and then disposing of all of the branded cow hides and sheep hides. Like, many of us generally just need to look at our local chisanyamas and the spots that we visit. These guys may or may not be partaking in the cultivation and the support of the stock theft market and its syndicates. I mean, think about it. The meat you likely had this festive season could have been from someone's flock and it was taken illegally. It's just a thought. I'm not saying it happened. Sometimes too many people in the meat industry turn a blind eye, and sometimes they're very much complicit and fully involved in the stealing of livestock. But there's also an impact that we need to talk about. For farmers, commercial farmers, and even subsistence farmers, livestock is more than just animals. It's their very livelihood. It's their investment, it's their future. Stock theft wipes out years of hard work in just a single night. The loss of animals not only means a direct financial hit, but it also disrupts breeding cycles, it reduces production, and it even forces farmers out of business. It's actually very serious. The impact of stock theft extends far beyond just a farm. It affects the entire agricultural value chain. When there are fewer animals to actually slaughter legitimately, there's less meat and there's less milk for consumers, which leads to higher prices. Businesses that also rely on agriculture, such as abattoirs and processing plants, they also suffer. And ultimately, jobs are lost and communities are devastated from this. Stock theft also has a significant social impact. It creates fear and mistrust within communities because everyone's trying to find out who's stealing our sheep. Farmers and breeders and families often feel very vulnerable and isolated in cases like this. The crime can also fuel conflict and violence within communities, and it can further destabilize rural as well as farming areas. The fight against stock theft requires a multifaceted approach. In my opinion, it requires stronger law enforcement. It needs stricter penalties for offenders. We also need to improve our cross-border cooperation, and essentially, we need to be talking to countries like Lesotho, where a lot of these cases come from. And a lot of our provinces like the Eastern Cape, KZN and Free State actually border the country. But even more importantly, we need community involvement. Farmers and police, as well as community members, they just need to start working together to prevent and also to report a lot of these crimes and bring these perpetrators to justice. The honest truth is that some people want to get rich quick. We should always be aware of these people with high ambitions and low morals. Thank you for watching this video up until this point. I hope it was just as interesting for you to watch as it was for me to make. Check out one of these other videos and hopefully they'll be just as interesting as this one. Cheers.